When Reggie Medford left secondary school in the 1970s, his future in academia looked bright. He therefore raised quite a few eyebrows with his decision to forego university and strike out on his own in business.
My background is very academic. I went to school at Harrison's College. I came out of Harrison College with I think about 11 O-levels, 2 A-levels. And my father was a doctor, so everything in my background would have been academic. But it so happened that my last year at school, I took a very firm decision that I didn't want to work for nobody. I wanted to be my own boss. Stemming from the fact that I think that so many people go to work every day and they're kind of fed up with a job. They would like to change the job. They're no longer fulfilled in it. And I said, that's not for me. Let me from day one find something to do that I really want to do. So that meant that I told my parents I'm not going to university. I ain't going to apply for a job. I'll find something to do.
The problem was that while he was firm in his decision to be his own boss, he had no clue what it was he really wanted to do.
So what happened is that I came out of school and I was just at home kind of drifting around, hoping to think of some great idea that was going to launch me into some business. And as weeks and months and so on passed, I realized, well, nothing's happening. So what triggered the whole thing was that we had a lot of coconut trees on our property. So I said, maybe I can do something with coconuts. Let me try something. So I bought myself a hat saw, some varnish, some sandpaper. And the rest is history. The first product I made was a slave band, or bangle, and that was the easiest thing to make. It was simply a matter of cutting off the 2 ends of the coconut. The coconut is kind of elliptical in shape, so I cut off this end, cut off that end. The piece in the middle, I dig out the coconut, throw that away. And then I sanded down the middle part, which of course was already a ring, varnished it, came out with a bangle, and somebody bought it straight away. And as simple as that sounds, I was on my way in business. And you can imagine, from the time somebody bought it, from the next morning, I was just cutting up coconut shells like a crazy man, sanding them down, doing everything myself, and selling.
His inventory grew from slave bands to key rings, earrings, necklaces, and an entire jewelry line as he quickly acclimatized to the business world.
The coconut shell is what got me started. It took off. I got myself into all the stores. I got myself into exporting. I really took it as a business, developed it. So by the time I was like 19, 20 years old, I was on the shelf at the best stores in town and selling at age 19, 20. Which was a fantastic accomplishment.
The coconut shell jewelry sold well for about 5 years, and then business started to decline. Reggie and his team needed a new product.
And just about then is when we started to experiment with mahogany. And as a Barbadian, you know how we feel about mahogany. Mahogany is the wood in Barbados. Any other tree is just a tree. Mahogany is, revered.
He paid tribute to his employees who rose to the challenge of a completely new product line, using a raw material with which they were all unfamiliar.
So when we realized our coconut shells jewelry sales were going down and down, and I'm saying we because I'm including my staff. Actually, my very first employees are still with me up to now. So I never say my story, it is our story. But the interesting story, part of the story is that when we decided to work with mahogany, we then realized that we had never carved anything before in our lives. We had no knowledge, no expertise, no skill whatsoever in wood carving. Totally different from cutting the coconut shell with a hat saw. Mahogany and wood carving now is much different skill, different equipment. We'd never done anything before like that. So we had a great idea, but we had no skill. And then the other big challenge was mahogany is quite expensive. So we were starting a new business, a new line, with no know-how and working with expensive raw material. If you look at that equation from a business point of view, that means we should fail. We shouldn't get off the ground at all because we just shouldn't make it. But we've done extremely well. Why? This is what happened. We decided to train ourselves. So we didn't go on apprentice with any old wood carver or anybody like that. We just, as I put it, fooled around. until we came up with a totally new way of carving.
They met the challenge by utilizing some of the techniques they had learnt while working with the coconut shell.
What we came up with then was somewhat a bring over from when we were doing the coconut shell. We had developed certain techniques working with the coconut shell that we now started to incorporate with the mahogany. And the result is that it took us in the direction to carve using a sanding machine as opposed to a mallet and a knife and whatever, which is the old, slow one of the thing. So we developed this process of carving, which is much faster, so it allows us to be more commercial, it allows us to produce more numbers, but still hand done.
They also eventually conquered that early stumbling block of novices working with an expensive raw material.
So the real challenge was to get a cheaper source of mahogany than buying it expensively at the store, because as you imagine, we were going to the store at first, buying expensive wood, coming back, trying to carve it, it didn't look like anything that anybody would buy. So, you know, we were wasting money, wasting wood. So we had to find a cheaper source of mahogany. And that was the key card in developing what Reggie Medford now has become known as an artist. What happened is we said, look, hey, let's go around the construction sites. If they bulldoze the site and push the site when they first come to the site and clear it, and they push down a mahogany tree, invariably what happens? They cut off the tree and they sell the tree because somebody is there ready to buy the mahogany, because it's hard to get. You know, the trees are protected, so you can only get mahogany off of the construction. But what was always left back was just roots, the stump. Nobody wants it. Everybody buys the tree, they go happy along, and the stump is just knocking around the stake. Nobody knows what to do it. So we went and we begged for the stumps. And the people smiled. They said, cool, this guy is a joker. But he's happy to get rid of our junk. So they were happy to give us the stumps. So we hired a big crane and load these big, massive, enormous stumps. I mean, you know, really. And we brought them in. So we now had free wood to work with, and we could train, we could practice, we could spoil a piece, no problem.
It was a time of experimentation and discovery.
That's when we discovered three things. One, the roots are the most difficult, frustrating, irritating, annoying, confusing, exasperating things you would ever want to work with. I mean, we didn't think of that. We just were happy that we were getting wood free. But then in a few minutes, we realized that we also had months and months of laborious work to clean out all the mud and rocks out of them. We didn't think of that. But the chainsaw, we have to cut it. It's a massive big thing. So we have to cut it up with a chainsaw to manageable sizes that we can then carve it into whatever we want. And if the chainsaw, as soon as the chainsaw hit the smallest little mud or smallest little rock, it's just gone totally dull. It's dull. So we then realized, okay, we're getting free roots and this is nice, but we had to spend months digging and cleaning to get all the mud and the rocks out of it before we could really properly cut it up to get enough wood to do, you know, significant production. So that was the downside. Up to today, we still have the problem that the roots are growing in the ground, they're going to be mud, there's going to be rocks, and the rocks just mash up your equipment. So the only way to save your equipment is to spend months of trying to dig it out, cleaning out all the rocks and whatever. And it is physical hard work. You can't just, you know, well, you don't get a power washer. Everybody says power washer. It doesn't work. And the rocks are over so many things trapped right inside the wood. In other words, the root will grow right around. So sometimes you can't even see the root. The rock is right inside the wood. And the saw hits that and it's just gone. So that's the downside of working with the roots. But on the other hand, what we discovered is that the roots have the most amazing shapes and forms. If you look at some of our roots here, you look at some of our roots here, just looking at them as they come straight out of the ground, all growing and plaited and twisted and turning and all the rest. So at first you said this is a big lump of, you know, kind of junk. But then when you look at it from an artistic point of view, you say, well, this is really interesting. And that struck me. And then I said, let me now look at these roots all twisted and turning and plaited and whatever, interpret them, and present a one only in the world mahogany root sculpture. And that was the birth of the line of Reggie Medford, one only in the world. And I say one only in the world, not as a boast, as an absolute fact of life. There is nowhere you can work with the roots and get two pieces exactly alike.
These one-of-a-kind sculptures, created at Medford's Craft World, have been presented to many dignitaries around the world.
I can proudly say that there's a Reggie Medford piece sitting in palaces, in prime minister's offices, heads of state, governors, dignitaries all over the world. I know something that we have was presented to Nelson Mandela. Stuff that we've done and been presented to, heads of state, Far East, China, you name it, it's been there. And my pride is that we are working with a totally local raw material. That's the key thing, and something that is, it comes right from the ground. So you can't have anything more Barbadian than that.
Another aspect of the business of which he's very proud is the opportunity presented to visitors to experience the production process from beginning to end.
I think in today's world, to see a product still being handmade in a real rudimentary setting, in other words, this isn't a fancy factory that it goes in one end and a computer shoots it out the other end. This is where at every stage of the process, a physical human being is fashioning it, carving it, taking it to by hand. So I think this is something that visitors really, is an experience where you're actually seeing the artist at work and the finished product is evolving right in front of your eyes when you come here on the tour. Wow, now look at the difference. This is what it was like. How long did that take? This is when you see something coming out of the root, I can look at that root, interpret it, take it from a rusty old, dirty old, crazy old piece of junk that comes out of the ground full of mud, full of rot, full of everything, and fashion it into something that you would now put in your living room and proudly says, this is my art piece. Now that is a one-off, and the fact that they've met the artist or that is signed by the artist, that makes it very special. Okay. All right. Now, if you give him the camera.
The successful entrepreneur advises young people interested in going into business for themselves to go for it, noting that today's environment is much more enabling than the one he entered many years ago.
There is a lot of money in Barbados. That's the first thing. If you're living in an economy where there is no money, then you can be as much an entrepreneur as you like. There's not enough cake to spread around, right? So based on that premise that there's a lot of money in Barbados, everybody should be able to get a little piece of the pie. In other words, the pie is big enough that a lot of mouthfuls can be available for people. And so I would say that entrepreneurship has a very ready environment to flourish. It's just to come up with the idea. So my advice for anyone who wants to go into business on their own, who wants to explore new ideas, there's a much more enabling environment right now. When I started out, there wasn't, all the different, you can go on the net now and find how to do a business plan, how to do a marketing plan, how to do this, how to do that. The government agencies that exist now, you have BIDC, you have Fund Access, you have Enterprise Growth Fund, you have whatever, urban, you have a whole range of government agencies that have been set up with a view to enabling people to start their own business and get off the ground. So certainly don't have expectations over and beyond, but for sure, why not do it on your own? The thing, if you want to work hard for somebody else, why not work hard for yourself?
Reginald Medford, artist, sculptor, entrepreneur, and a true Bajan.